My name is Johnson Nguyen, and I'll be giving a presentation on global warming and its effects on the ecosystem in what I like to call ecosystem dominoes. So Earth in the recent years has been warming up. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that Earth hasn't been at its coolest in a while, and it causes major damage to the environment, such as the uncontrollable wildfires found in Australia that happened earlier this year, and unusual weather patterns that we've seen happening in recent years. And our ocean is being affected as well. So how can it be that bad? Can warming waters really be beneficial to our environment? I'd say no. One great example would be the Great Barrier Reef. A lot of it has been known to be what is called coral bleaching, where the coral begins to lose its colors as changes in its environment cause too much stress for the coral, and the color from the coral fade away. So the ecosystem is something that has been around for millions of years, and it is the structure of all life in the world. Smaller animals feast on smaller animals, and as we progress through that chain, bigger animals and predators start to feed on those animals. So in the start, we have small animals such as plankton and krill, and as we slowly progress through the chain, the organisms begin to get bigger and bigger. And this is what we see in everyday life in the ocean. Marine animals depend on these animals to live and survive. And if you take just one part of it away, the ecosystem may begin to collapse in a domino effect, which is why I will be focusing on the beginning steps of the ecosystem, krill and plankton, as they form the base of the food web and provide for the entire ocean. So there are two types of plankton. According to Kayla Blinkow and Laura Lilly, who are two scientists studying plankton, discussed the importance of two types of plankton in an interview where they discuss something called phytoplanktons, which we know as microscopic plants, and with them they provide air for the world through photosynthesis, just like other plants, like trees and other plants on land, and also regulate CO2 levels in the air, effectively keeping the planet cooler. But as more CO2 is released in the air, these plankton, the phytoplankton, can't really keep up. And we also have zooplankton, which on the bottom right are just microscopic animals that provide for the entire food chain. I'll be also looking at krill, which are second in the food chain, which means they eat both phytoplankton and zooplankton and depend on them for survival. So, with warming waters, there are plenty of effects on plankton. And in an experiment done by a group of scientists under the Finnish Institute of Marine Research, they studied the effects of the warming waters of the Baltic Ocean on certain planktons in the region, specifically the Cryptophyceae. And what they found was that usually the Cryptophyceae are abundant in all seasons and thrive in cooler weather. But what they saw was, as warm waters became more plentiful, the Cryptophyceae started to become lower quality and smaller, which damaged their placement on the food chain, stating that they became less energy efficient food webs and consisted of lower food quality and smaller size organisms, which in combination with warming may lead to the decreased availability of energy for grazing zooplankton and fish, which is a quote from what they found and their results. So what this means for the ocean is that as these plankton become smaller and low quality, predators that once feasted on these plankton, such as krill, may not get the same level of food as they were getting and may suffer because of that. And predators that feast on all of these may result in a decrease in population. Furthermore, I'll be looking at the krill population done by a simulation by a group of scientists led by Emily S. Klein. They simulated the North and South Scotia Sea as well as the Antarctic Peninsula and observed the impact of warmer oceans on the krill growth and their predators. Essentially, what they found was that through their simulations, they were able to test from the years 2007 to 2099. And what they found was that as increased greenhouse gases represented by the RCP levels, as increased concentration of greenhouse gases occurred, the initial weight of each krill began to falter and fall down and decrease in quality. And in each SSMU or specific subregion of their respective oceans, they found that initially all krill were above or around 90% in their weight, but with an increase in greenhouse gases, their weights begin to fluctuate. And this could mean that the weight of the krill decreased as the greenhouse gases increase, leading to the conclusion that warmer oceans do not benefit the krill population and the predators that feast on the krill. So as a result, the krill growth was hindered, and this could mean that less food is available for the predators, and which may come rippling down the entirety of the very fragile ecosystem, where one animal depends on the survivability of another, and if the survivability of that animal is gone, others may have to move around and try to adapt, or may not even be able to adapt, which leads to the endangerment of many marine life. And which is why the ecosystem is so fragile, as just one part of the ecosystem is removed, then the entire thing may collapse as animals start looking for other sources of foods. So further effects of the warming oceans are that as these populations begin to decrease, animals that depend on them for food may have to move somewhere else. And with new warmer waters brings animals that live in warm waters in places that were once frigid or cold places in oceans. So in an observation done by Cheryl Lynn Diaz for the American Institute of Biological Sciences, she found that in 2006 guillemots, which are seabirds on the Isle of Shetland off the coast of Scotland, were no longer found there, and previously they came to the ocean to breed and feast on the sand eel population. But as the waters began to increase in temperature, the sand eel population moved further into the ocean. And this happened for many other bird species in that area, and found that the seabird population decreased by 70%. So it would be to no surprise that the seabirds are suffering from this, as their main source of food, the sand eels, have moved elsewhere because of the warming oceans. The warmer oceans brought in animals that were not very indigenous to that area, And as the sand eels preferred colder waters, they would move further into the oceans, which meant that the birds, the guillemots, had to follow as well. So around that area, the economy suffers as well, as humans who depend on the sand eels for food, and the companies that use it to make money have to find somewhere else to obtain sand eels, or close down entirely. So not only is the ecosystem in danger, as new species of animals start showing up in newer areas, and animals that once depended on sand eels no longer have that population, have to look elsewhere, bringing down the ecosystem as well as human economy. So in conclusion, the dominoes may never stop if it starts. Nothing good comes out of the effects of the climate change on the oceans. And the krill and plankton, which are vital to our planet's survivability and life, as the phytoplankton give us air to breathe, as well as plants do as well. And the krill provide food for the entire food chain. It causes the entire thing to suffer and decline. The ecosystem is so fragile that if you take out just these two plots of animals, it may throw off the entire balance, and their importance in the ocean are often unnoticed, which is why they're so important to keeping our planet alive. Which is why we should make sure we regulate how much CO2 is being pumped into the air in order to make Earth a home for everything. Thank you. Good night.